Cycles with cyclesgaming.com, bringing you my wrap up for my Pioneer Curious Gruul Dragons deck. It was really fun. I mean, just such a pleasure to play dragons and to play in a format without all the free spells. So let's talk a little bit about how it all went down and how the deck performed. So in our practice matches, we went 5-0, which was pretty good. And our first match was Boggles, followed by Blue White Spirits. And I was thinking, man, this really is like Modern back in 2016. Then we played a Satyr Tribal deck and a Gruul midrange, which also the Gruul midrange kind of reminded me upon a little bit without the land destruction, I guess. Just value creatures up the curve. And then we played like a janky burn deck. So definitely got a little bit of a Pioneer feel to it towards the end of our practice matches. 5-0 is great. It felt great. The Dragons just did what they do, outclassed a lot of what our opponents are up to. Super fun. The ramp package played just as smoothly as it does in Modern, if not more smoothly. People seem to be playing less spot removal, at least in the practice zone, the free zone. But I had a sneaking suspicion that something like Satyr Tribal was not a tier 1 deck, and that once we got to a league, it would be a little bit more difficult. And that's exactly what happened when our first match was up against Rakdos Vampires, the Pro Tour winning deck. And our opponent takes a 4-drop 6/6 flyer. So not used to our dragons being outclassed by other flyers, but yeah, vampires and demons can win in battle against dragons apparently. So that matchup felt pretty bad. So we lost that one, I think 0-2. Then we played a Golgari Insidious Roots deck, which we managed to get a game against, but really missed Brotherhood's End in the sideboard against that deck. We were desperate for a sweeper and just didn't have it, and they were able to, in games 1 and 3, grind out, even on a mull to 5 in game 3, just had all the right combo pieces to start grinding out value against us, and we couldn't keep up with all the value and race them. Got our 1 match win against a Rakdos mid-range deck, so nice to know we can compete with some of Rakdos's best cards, even in Pioneer. And then we ran up against 2 more tier decks in Niv Delight, I think that was the 5th matchup, and Amelia Life King combo. So yeah, it was like that rude awakening to Pioneer that the practice matches did not prepare us for, which I mean, I knew going into it that's probably what was going to happen, but it was nice to see how the deck performed against some of the tier decks. We managed to get some games against some of these best decks, but didn't win any matches against them. Forgot to bring in Rampaging Frostodon against the Amalia combo, which is a total newbie to Pioneer mistake. So that might have helped a little bit, but since we did get 1 game against them. So yeah, we got a game against Amalia or Amelia, whatever combo, a game against Niv before losing the match in games 3 against both of them. So the only matchup that felt really brutal was the Rakdos Vampires. And I'm just not sure what our strategy should be to fight that. So that's something to think about for the future. As far as overperforming, underperforming cards, Haven of the Spirit Dragon, I think I got to use once. Play with Fire was fine. Invasion of Third Gear, I'm on the fence about because we could be playing Stomp in that spot. There were games where our opponent scooped once we got the dragon down on the flip side of the siege. And it did give us another creature to play in the right spots if our opponent was gaining life or we weren't going to win the race anytime soon with what we were attacking with. Just go ahead and attack down the siege and get a 4/4 that shocks our opponent every time a dragon attacks. That's pretty good. So is it better than Stomp and Bone Crusher Giant? I'm not so sure. Bone Crusher Giant does. Well, both Bone Crusher Giant and the backside of Takir will trigger Kiora, I'm just thinking, but the Bone Crusher has that as an added benefit, but it doesn't. But the 2 damage from Shock or from the Stomp on Bone Crusher Giant. Yeah, and then I guess the reason why I'm so hesitant is because we don't have to take 1 or 2 turns off to flip the siege to flip a Bone Crusher Giant, right? We play Stomp on turn 2, Bone Crusher Giant on turn 3. Immediately keep pressuring our opponent's life total that way. Whereas with the siege, there is a greater upside, but it comes at the cost of often taking 2 whole turns off, so 8 points of life. Because a lot of times we only have a 4/4 to attack with, so it means we have to hit it twice with a 4/4 before we get another 4/4. So yeah, it's a little slow. I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you think. The best play we had was hitting it once with a 4/4 and then using Play with Fire to flip it. on our opponent's end step. So that's the best way to do it. Stingerback Terror was, I think, the other all-star. Obviously Glorybringer Cure is a great combination. Questing Beast is amazing, but Stingerback Terror is a new dragon that I don't play in the modern build that really super powerful. We were able to get it out as a 6/6 very regularly, as a 7/7 pretty regularly. Having the plot has some flexibility is really powerful. So yeah, I was really happy with the deck. I think it could use some tweaking. I'm not sure exactly how I want to tweak it. Beyond Bone Crusher Giant, I've tried things like Fable in my modern build and was not impressed with it with dragons, but we could make room for a Bone Crusher Giant or another Stingerback Terror somehow, and maybe a little bit more removal. Sideboard, I think the things I would change would be finding room for Brotherhood's End. Pick Your Poison, I think, is a definite necessary card against the Rakdos Vampires and Light decks to get rid of those big flyers. Really would just want to find a way to kill a 6/6 flyer without having to use 2 spells. Pick Your Poison is one. There are a couple other sacrifice green sorceries, but is there a better red spell that can just kill a 6/6? I'm not sure. I have to do some research, but I have a feeling that there is not. Rending Volley could have been, I brought it in the least, I think. So do we make room for Brotherhood's End there? Do we just trust that what we want to kill with Chandra's Defeat, we would kill with Brotherhood's End to take out some of those? But find room for those. Clothis, I love it, but we brought it in a lot. We just never saw it. So I might cut a Clothis. Maybe find some other graveyard hate beyond Unlicensed Hearse that can address some of these graveyard decks at instant speed or in a way that it doesn't involve such, I don't know, just a mana investment that just sits on the battlefield and can be killed before our opponent goes off, right? They can just wait, find their answer, kill it, and then start filling the graveyard. So Pioneer may not have that. I know there is no endurance in Pioneer, so it may just not have that as an option, but I'm going to look into it. But overall, it was fun. I enjoyed Pioneer. Playing in the leagues obviously was a little disheartening when our dragons were struggling to keep up. Some of that was just not knowing the tier 1 decks, and some of it was, we're dragons, so we're fighting a fair fight largely. But I wasn't encouraged by the fact that we were able to get some games against the top decks. So I think there's hope, and there is something here. Maybe it's a 3-2 on average, but still, it's fun, and I think Pioneer is a fun place to brew and has a more mid-range, slower feel to it than Modern. It does feel more like Modern in 2016. So if that's something you're interested in, if you want creature-based strategies that aren't just going to get hosed by free spells, or cheaper, better creatures, than a 4 or 5 drop, meaning hey, Ragavan and Dauthi Voidwalker and Orcish Bowmasters, they cost less and they're just better than some of these 4 and 5 drops that we play on average. If you're looking for a place to play some of the cards that don't find a home in modern and competitive decks, maybe Pioneer is for you too. So I'm going to keep playing it. I'll keep publishing some Pioneer Curious articles as I explore this format and some of the decks I've enjoyed playing that don't quite make it in modern, see if they can make it in Pioneer. And let me know if you have anything you want to see in Pioneer that you want me to play, and if you enjoy the gameplay and if it's something you want to see more of. But for now, I'll wrap it up. And so overall, just to sum it up, 5-0 practice, 1-4 league, gives us a 6-4 overall. So we'll keep working at it. But as always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. This has been another edition of Pioneer Curious. Thanks for watching. This is Johnny Cycles. If you haven't already, check out my website, cyclesgaming.com, where you can read about my various commander decks, watch my modern brews in action, read the articles, and watch the gameplay from my Pioneer decks, and read my science fiction fantasy novel, The Podkind, that I'm publishing serially. If you like the content, please click that subscribe button on YouTube. Everybody counts. As always, thanks for watching. I'll catch y'all on the next one.